everybody, and welcome to Indie Film Cafe Spotlight. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got my co-host here, Paul A. Presenza. How are you doing, Paul?
I am moveless. How's it going, everyone?
Good. And we've got another person with a middle initial name. James L. Edwards is our special guest today. How are you doing, James?
Doing real good. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Right.
So we all have we all kind of use our middle names for our stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, so is there another James Edwards? Was that why you did James L. Edwards?
I went with see, everybody knows me as from my middle name, Lonnie. Everybody calls me Lonnie, and I had met with what was it? When I first started out, I had met with an agent that was like, "Oh, you don't want to go with Lonnie Edwards because there's a Lonnie Anderson, and they'll go ahead and they'll mix the two of you up. So don't just go with James L. Edwards."
That's weird.
Yeah, so I end up doing like 15
Lonnie
movies.
Anderson, a female?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. And so I end up doing like 15 movies and then going to Los Angeles trying to meet with another agent. And they're like, why would you go with Lonnie? Or why would you go with James? There's a million James out there. You could have stood out as Lonnie. I'm like, well, it's too late for that now. So.
And I was thinking James L. Brooks.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, either way, you're going to get some kind of name that sounds like another name.
I mean, I guess I'd rather be associated with James L. Brooks with the two.
Yeah,
But
that's
there
true.
you go.
I don't think you want to be associated as Lonnie Anderson,
I don't know. I think personally, I think I would have killed it in Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. So I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, you'd have to dye your hair platinum.
Well, so I guess a lot of people have asked you this a lot of times, I'm sure, or whatever, including myself. And but to give a little background, you started out in working with obviously with J.R. Bookwalter on Dead Next Door. With Dead Next Door, your first movie. When you were how old?
I was 12 years old when I started that production.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just my mom happened to see an ad in our local newspaper looking for zombies, and at the time I had no interest in acting. I wanted to be a special effects artist, and the problem with that was I had no artistic talent whatsoever. So, but I kind of bullshit my way into a meeting with them, showed them a bunch of Polaroids of me with like fake blood and pumpkin guts on myself. And they hired me as an assistant, and then very quickly realized I had no clue what I was doing. But they liked my spirit, so kept me aboard on the set, and I was with them. And I think the following 15 years. Yeah.
And
You can go a long way with pumpkin guts.
There you go. That so you also acted in that, right? Like you were there acting.
Just small extra roles. I think I show up in it 3 times. Once as the kid with his back ripped open that the zombie's eating him. I was another zombie in another scene, and I was a cult member. So, but no speaking lines.
Cult member at 12 years old?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Starting them early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I hope you didn't drink the punch.
I did not drink the punch. Well, I mean, looking at the future Tempe movies, maybe I should have. So I don't know.
That would have been that would be a cool idea for us. They always come up with like these weird, crazy ideas, but like the idea of like a Jim Jones cult, but instead of turning the people into or just killing the people, they turn them into zombies. So
there we go.
Zombie massacre or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's interesting though. I had no idea that you were that young when you met up with those guys. It reminds me a little bit of Josh Schweier and Chris Seaver. I mean, he was pretty young when he started working with him too, and I was just kind of fascinates me a little bit.
I think it was one of those things that realistically, I kind of thank my parents for being completely irresponsible and letting me go off on my own at 12, because otherwise I wouldn't have had the career that I had. So,
well, it also makes me think of all like a lot of like family members get kind of put into that stuff too. So, we were just talking the other day about Fred Olin Ray and Chris Ray, you know, and stuff. So, I mean, you know, they start him off young, and I guess Chris was never like, his plan was never to be a director, and he just ended up doing it because, you know, runs in the family, that kind of thing.
There you go.
Right.
Well, sure. When your father's a director and you've got interest in the business, sooner or later opportunities are going to come your way that aren't going to go in front of a lot of other people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to give you an example, I have 3 kids myself. Okay, my oldest son could not be any less interested in what I do. I don't know if he's ever seen anything that I've done. He has no interest whatsoever. My middle child will if I need somebody in a pinch, she'll agree to do it, but she really doesn't care. But my youngest desperately wants to act. My youngest, I put her in a couple of things so far, and she's just so into it. So it's like, well, you know, I figure I got 1 out of 3. I can't complain. So
there you go.
There you go. So yeah, I love that. I love that you're trying. Well, I mean, you know, in a way, did you really want, like, did you want your kids going into it? I mean, because a lot of parents are afraid
honestly,
to put their kids.
Yeah, not particularly, only because of the fact that I know that it can be an incredibly frustrating business. My line of thinking is and I think all parents do this, where it's like, if it's something like with my youngest, if she's interested, I'll support it. If she was interested in becoming a pilot, I would support that. It's just one of those things where I can't say that I purposely said it, because I remember how frustrating it was for me in the business young, as far as just being around people that were much older than me, not necessarily getting the same opportunities because they're going out and partying. It's like, well, I'm 12. What am I going to contribute to that? So it's like, well, yeah, I get that.
Let me ask you this then, because I mean, obviously you've been part of the business for a good while now. Do you think that maybe because of technology, that maybe there are more or less opportunities now than, say, the golden age of shooting on video?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that because of advances in technology and the advent of YouTube and everything, I think it's giving a lot more people opportunities that didn't have them before. The problem with that is that now everyone that I run into is a filmmaker. Now everyone thinks that they know how to write a script, they know how to make a movie, they know how to act, and it's a lot more. I'm all for competitive, don't get me wrong. It's just when we work in an industry that pretty much survives on advertising, on like getting your stuff promoted, it's not a matter anymore about who has the better movie. It's, hey, who can create the better poster, who can get the most, who has the most followers, or who can get their stuff out more.
Most likes, or you know, the most people looking at it on TikTok, the biggest viral push, that kind of thing.
And that is, you're right, that's a problem for kids, you know, because now like when I was a kid in high school, the only thing we had to worry about was who was like the popular person who was going to get prom king. Now it's like, who's going to be the person who's going to get prom king, plus who's going to be getting the more hits on TikTok, who's going to be, you know, you're competing with your friends for how many likes you get on a video on YouTube. And I feel like it's worse, because now it's like people are feeling way more insecure about themselves because they're not getting the attention.
And I think that actually bleeds over to the older generation as well. Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't know the first thing about TikTok. I don't know the first thing about any of that stuff. I'm from what I understand, mostly what I promote on is Facebook, and that's old guy stuff. Nobody even cares about Facebook.
I don't really want to know. And the thing is that, you know, even on a very peripheral thing that I've been involved with Sick Flick Productions, you know, getting into like doing the acting and set design, doing production, all that kind of stuff has been great. I love every bit of it, despite how you know how hard it is, the long hours, the sacrifices, all that stuff. I'm willing to do all that stuff. But when it comes down to things like, you know, spreading the word and begging for money and doing all that kind of stuff, that's the part of it that I dislike. It's just not in my nature. And, you know, that's the thing that you got to have, though. I mean, in this day and age.
It's not just a matter anymore of being a competent filmmaker. You have to be your own sales agent. You have to be your own promoter. It's tough. I mean, it's because, again, people have a million options now. It's like, I sound like a dinosaur by saying this, but there was kind of a quaintness to the fact that there were a small pool of people that were making these type of films, even in the 90s, where it's like you had a group of people that would go out and make their own movies. Now it just seems like everybody is doing it. So
yeah, and it's crazy. We have Indie Film Cafe as a as a group on Facebook. So if you guys want to go check that out, please do. Please join us because we love people promoting their stuff. But like all I see on it, and I don't. That's the one group that I kind of let go, let people do whatever on it, because it's not a specific niche or anything, but I let people do whatever they want on it. Most of the time they want to just promote their Indiegogos. And and it's cool, skin your eyes out. Like, dude, I'm all for it. Problem is, if you have like one person posting one, then the next person posting another one, and then another one, chances are only maybe one or if none are going to get funded on that page because there's just too many options.
Exactly. How do you choose? Let's say you're a fan of indie film and you have $100 burning a hole in your pocket. Do you give a bunch of people $5 towards their film, or do you put $100 towards one? It's like, no matter what, somebody's going to lose out.
And your friends are always making stuff, and you want to support your friends, and then you see another one and like, oh, that looks good, or you're a fan of this particular actor and you want to help them. It's not easy. And the other thing is that you hope that if you're letting all these other people sort of cross promote, that they will in turn help cross promote your content as well. And we've been pretty good, I think, about doing that, and about fostering that, and about teaming up with other people who don't mind doing that, because we don't mind doing it for them.
Right, exactly. So I want to jump right into this real quick. We talked a little bit about your acting, but I want to know, like, was Polymorph the first, or did you write Bloodletting first? What was the first movie script you wrote, and did that get made? Or
I had let's see, I had and I always mess up the timeline on this. I had been a writer for alternative cinema. I'd been a review writer as well as having my own column. And I was adamant that I wanted to write a screenplay. And I basically was trying to prove to JR that I could do it. And I had written a screenplay called Fugitives, a Love Story. It was kind of like a thriller that I wanted to do.
Sounds fun.
It was. I really enjoyed the script. He felt it borrowed too much from Natural Born Killers, but so it wasn't about serial killers. But so what? That's fine. And where he wasn't interested in making it, he did appreciate the fact that I had written a screenplay. Well, it was shortly after that I had written a review for the Pete Jackalone film Psycho Sisters that I completely destroyed the movie. I completely shit all over the movie. And he contacted me and he's like, look, you didn't care for my movie. Once you put your money where your mouth is, we're planning on a reboot of it. You write it. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds like fun. So, and to his credit, I mean, it's one of those where I was kind of known at the time as like almost like the equivalent of a shock jock as far as reviewers go. So my whole gimmick was just being offensive and everything. So it wasn't even necessarily that the movies I didn't care for. I was promoting myself more than the movies. It's something I actually look back on and regret a lot of that time. So I wrote the script for him, and they made the film, and he did a great job with it. And I can't remember if I'd written Polymorph or Bloodletting. Or I'm sorry, Bloodletting I did not write. That was Matthew Jason Walsh.
Oh,
I can't remember if I wrote Psycho Sisters or Polymorph first, but one of them came after the other, and I just kind of went from there.
I swear, I thought I read that you co-wrote or wrote Bloodletting.
No, I mean, I will say this, Matt Walsh, the only thing that I really had contributed as far as that goes was Matt Walsh had basically come to me and said, listen, I wrote this script specifically. What if the Lonnie that I know was a serial killer. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm all for that. And the only thing I adjusted at all with the screenplay was I was very adamant that I wanted to do a nude scene in the film as an actor. And the reason was for completely selfish reasons. Years before that, I was asked to be in the John Russo film Midnight 2 Sex, Death, and Videotape. And I turned the script down because I didn't care for the script, and B, John Amplas played the role that they wanted me to play. And I'm like, John Amplas is readily available. Anybody that's a fan of the first one isn't going to want to see me in this role. They're going to want to see the original actor. Well, JR had produced the film and basically had said, oh, no, he doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to do the sex scene. And that really kind of pissed me off. And I'm like, okay, you want me, if that's the way we're going to play it, the next film I do, I'm doing a sex scene just to prove that you're wrong, you know? So
it's funny.
Nice.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
We really
interesting. I mean,
go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, there's like a delay going on.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to mention, obviously you've done a lot of work with J.R. Bookholder, but now it seems like you're doing other work with Brad Twigg and the Fuzzy Monkey crew. Mm-hmm. Is there a big difference, do you think, between? I mean, I guess there's going to be differences with them individually, but just as a way that they approach the material, say.
Well, I mean, one thing that I found is, again, every director is different. So, I mean, I get the opportunity to learn from everybody I've ever worked with, whether or not I've been happy with the final film or not. The thing I love about working with Brad was the fact that it's a different environment, because where Brad and mine's relationship was very, very interesting, because he came to me as a fan. He had grown up with these movies. I always joke about the first time that I had met him. I was asked to do a convention appearance in 2000 that was a 15-year reunion for the first film I worked on, The Dead Next Door. And at the time, I was not on good terms. JR and I were not on speaking terms. We had a falling out. And I initially had turned down the offer. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And my wife at the time had said, look, you know what? I've never been to one of these conventions before. We're going to go. I'll dress like a total slut. You do your best Dennis Leary impersonation. I'll hang on you all night while you're smoking, and we're going to have fun with this. I'm like, all right, fine. So we show up at the convention, and I'm not even on the floor yet. I'm in the elevator from the parking garage. And she turns to me and she goes, so who's all going to be at this thing? And I'm like, just your usual dreck of freaks and weirdos. And just joking. And this little, maybe 13 or 14-year-old kid who's in the elevator with his parents looks up at me and says, I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Edwards. I'm your biggest fan. We drove all the way from West Virginia to meet you. I'm like, oh, fuck. So I immediately go into save ass mode. And I'm like, I'm not talking about the fans. I'm talking about the idiots I used to work with. Come here, kid. And I put my arm around him and take a bunch of pictures with him. Turns out that was Brad Twigg.
That's great.
He kept contact kept in contact with me for years. And then sure enough, as he got older, he started directing his own films. And I reached out to him. I'm like, look, you know what? I want you to know, if you ever need any help, if you ever need anything, I'll be more than happy to. I appreciate the fact you've supported me all these years, whatever you need. And we just kind of built a friendship from there. Or not, well, we already had a friendship, but we built a working relationship from there. And it literally went from me like filming cameos in my hometown and sending them to him. Then I came up to Maryland and shot Killer Camp out for him. I've written screenplays for him. And then most recently, when we did our last film, Brimstone Incorporated, our anthology, I basically asked him to direct one of the segments that I had written. So yeah, I mean, it's been a really nice working relationship. JR, on the other hand, it was a completely different dynamic, because where Brad grew up watching me and basically admiring my work, I was almost like a reverse of that with JR, where it's like, oh my God, here's this guy directing his own film, that Sam Raimi is financing. It's like I was completely starstruck. So that's how. So again, it was just kind of one of those weird reversal of roles kind of thing.
You know, that strikes me as that would be kind of a fun, sweet little movie in there. Somebody could make that into a story. You know, the guy is a kid and he admires this one person, and then years later the exact same thing in reverse happens. Be kind of fun.
That I would like that. I would watch that movie. You know. Yeah. So yeah, that's a wonderful that you had that storyline with everything. To go back to like working with JR, I mean, you've done a lot of movies with him.
Oh yeah. I believe I had done every movie that JR had done up until 2000 when Tempe moved to Los Angeles. I had done everything except for Midnight 2, again, because like I said, I just did not like the script and I didn't want to play somebody else's role that I felt that should have played. And I also, unfortunately, didn't do Kingdom of the Vampire. And the only reason I was asked to do the lead in Kingdom of the Vampire, but that I had a family vacation planned, and literally these things were filmed like 2 to 3 days tops. And it just so happened that when they were planning on filming, I was going to be out of town. So, and sadly, it was one of those that I never cared for the 6-shot on video movies that we did, but out of the group of them, that's the one I like the most, and I'm not even in the damn thing.
So. My question about that is like, what did you think of Matthew Jason Walsh's portrayal of the part that you were gonna get? I thought he did like honestly, I really liked that movie, and I loved him in it.
I think he did a really, really good. He did it completely different than I would have, but I always felt that Matt was a talented actor. I feel bad because he was kind of teased mercilessly on the set of a lot of the movies that we worked on because of the fact that Matt was an incredibly talented writer, but he really had a problem with assertion. He had a problem with sticking up for himself, so that kind of made him a punching bag. So to like give you an idea, as far as his acting, he was never taken seriously because people on the set would make fun of him basically because it's like, oh, you're acting this? What, did Lonnie turn it down? It's like, oh, I would tell him, this has nothing to do with that. But it was unfortunately one of those things where several roles that he had taken were things that I had passed on, and that's why. So it's like I always felt bad about that.
Oh man, that's rough. I love him. I'm still happy that like I'll watch those like wrong movies or whatever that he does with David Dakota. You know. And by the way, okay, so we've had this discussion with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And you probably know the exact way. Is it Dakota or Dakota, or how do you say it?
Yeah, Dakota.
Dakota?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For some reason, was it that new Quentin Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, has a character named Dakota or something like that. And I'm like, I'm wondering if that was like, they're trying to say David Dakota's name, or whatever.
Yeah, that I don't know. I know that what was it? It always threw me off because of the spelling. And the only reason I knew was because I was directly involved with movies that he had financed. I've only met David once. Super nice guy. I mean, incredibly personable. But being in Ohio and him being in Los Angeles, we didn't get a chance to run into each other much.
So you didn't end up in any of the 1313 movies then?
No, I missed it.
He didn't ask you to come out and be shirtless?
No, I don't really have. I mean, you've seen Krista. I don't really have the body that I think he's looking for. So
I don't know, man. Now those 1313 movies are getting old, man.
Dad bods are in. Come on.
Well, I mean, and again, I tease, but at the same token, I will give credit where credit's due. Where it's like he found a niche. He found a very successful niche, and it's like, you know what? Good for him. It may not be anything that I want to see, but it obviously has an audience.
How would you not want to see 1313 Bigfoot Island? Come on.
I guess I'm fickle. I have to say I'm fickle, Paul. I'm just not into it.
I'll watch anything with Bigfoot in it. I gotta admit.
Yeah. And that can become a problem, I think. So you worked with JR, you did so many movies. We've done for this show, we did Polymorph and we did Zombie Cop.
Okay.
And yeah, Zombie Cop is one of those movies that we unfortunately, so I did it last season with two of my, with one of my friends and her boyfriend.
Right.
And they both, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they hated it a lot more. I had to delete a video because I actually said sort of nice things before, when I did a review, because I thought it's just silly and goofy,
Right.
and you don't take it seriously, but they took it. They took it seriously, and in this day and age, it definitely is a movie that, if you watch it, it's rough because of all the.
It's one of those things where I've always been fascinated with the fact that anybody wanted to revisit any of those 6 specific shot on video movies, because they're all garbage. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They're complete crap. And when JR had announced last year that he was doing a box set with all of them, I laughed. I was just like, yeah, that nobody's going to buy this. Nobody wants this. Nobody. And to his credit, I mean, it sold like gangbusters. I don't know who was watching this, but
Paul will be watching that stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
Paul loves that kind of stuff. I have a question though, like, because I keep seeing Ozone. I've never seen it for some reason. I mean, how is Ozone? Is it pretty good?
I love Ozone. I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of fun making that film. Me being the egomaniac that I am, getting to play three major roles in it, I was thrilled with. I think it's well paced. I think a lot of the script is a little derivative, but at the same token, it's just a fun action ride. I think the majority of the actors are fun in it. The effects are great. I would definitely check it out.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to do Ozone on the next next season, because we already did Witch House 3, so we already did J.R. Bookwalter this year.
Right.
Which sadly you weren't in that one because I guess he went out to LA.
At that point, he was in Los Angeles, and like I said, we had a small personal falling out at that point, so I was no longer working with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, that's a shame, because that would have been a good one to be involved with.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
The Witch House movies are fun.
I do have one more Brad Twiggish kind of question for you. The Reverend character that you played in MILFs versus Zombies, that's the same one that's in Wrestle Massacre, isn't it?
It's technically, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I think we were playing around with it where it's like, I guess technically it's his brother, because
okay. Because I'm like, how did he get out of MILFs versus Zombies?
Well, the thing was, he had asked me to do a cameo in Wrestle Massacre, and he gave me the idea or he told me what he wanted me to do. And I was filming, her name was Krista at the time, so I was bald at the time. And I'm like, we can shoot something here. I'm like, but I don't look anything like that character anymore. I'm like, I can put on a wig, but the only wig that I have, it's going to be obvious that's a wig. And he's like, no, that's fine. He's like, we just got that scene. So literally that day when I shot that, I had shot 3 characters in one day because we had scheduled it. We needed that location. So I had scheduled some reshoots for Krista that day where I basically had the shaved head. Then I threw on a wig and did the Nathan or the Reverend Ashbury stuff there. Then I took the wig off and put on a different wig, and they made me up as a clown for a short film that my director of photography at the time was shooting. So it was a very, very, a very chaotic day.
Wow.
That's awesome, though. Being able to do 3 movies like that, like back to back, like
it was fun. It was very conveyor belt. So,
but I don't suppose that character makes an appearance in Brimstone Incorporated.
No, he does not. It was one of those where if Brad wants me to bring Reverend Ashbury back, I will, because we've had a running joke where my characters have siblings. So, like, to give you an idea, I play a bounty hunter named Samson Del Mar in Killer Campout. Well, if you see his follow-up to that death board, there's a TV commercial with a television celebrity / survivalist named Merle Del Mar that's like selling this survival knife. And
nice.
The joke is, okay, they must be related, kind of thing.
So to go to your thing that you've told me before is a lot of people confuse you for Brian O'Halloran. So you're like the Dante Hicks too,
right?
Right.
Playing different
150%.
Which I love, because I when I interviewed him back in the day, he told me that I guess the in joke was that Kevin Smith thought it'd be really funny if he played a couple of Hicks.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's funny. I don't know whether you heard our podcast on polymorph, but every now and again I'd be going, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
No, Jonathan didn't send me a link on that because I want to definitely check it out.
I think I
come
did.
on.
I'm pretty sure I did back in the day.
I did not get one. I swear. I send it to me. I will absolutely watch it.
Oh, it's not
Yeah.
watch, it's a listen. So
Oh,
it's a
listen to it, I'm
podcast.
sorry.
Yeah. But I thought I probably did back in the day. And I don't know. Anyway, if I didn't, I'm sorry. I thought
Well,
I
it's
did.
okay. No, definitely send it because I'd love to listen.
Or maybe I was afraid.
Yeah, that
Always
might be it.
I'm always
I know I
afraid of-
definitely didn't get one for Zombie Cop. So
Oh yeah. Well, I'm definitely always afraid, and like I shouldn't be afraid of you because I know
right. We've known each other for years. If I can destroy my own stuff, I have no problem listening to other people destroy my stuff. So
Well, yeah, and that is good because a lot of filmmakers these days, especially like ones that, and I'm not gonna like obviously name anybody, but
right.
or call anyone out, but like there's these filmmakers who think that they're amazing, that if you do any review of them, they aren't going to be your friend, and like,
Oh, yeah.
like now you're their enemy.
It's ridiculous.
My problem, the way I've always looked at it is this. I have, I'm trying to think the way, I've trashed a lot of people's movies back in the 90s, specifically indie filmmakers. But that being said, I've always put my real name on the review. I'll take anybody's opinion into consideration. I absolutely, if you love my movies, great. If you hate my movies, that's fine too. Just don't be a coward about it and write some anonymous anonymous little review on IMDb under a fake name. Come at me, talk to me about it. I'm easily found on Facebook. To give you an example, it's like Krista it basically got about a 75-25 split, where it was like, okay, 75% of the people that have seen it absolutely loved it, as far as if we go by IMDb numbers, and 25% thought it was total dog shit. I can live with that. I'm completely fine with that. But yet, to this day, I think I've had 2 people actually approach me and say, oh, I didn't care about it because of this. Most of the time, all I hear are the good reviews. I want to hear bad reviews. That's the only way any of us are going to grow as filmmakers, is to figure out how we can improve.
And that's great. I'm glad you bring that up. And one of the things, if you follow our show, we always make fun and we talk about our movies and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the very fact that we are spotlighting these movies shows that we love these movies and we want them to be out there in the consciousness so that they're not forgotten. And then in our review page, we always link it back so that people can go out and buy their own physical copies of them, especially if they can get it directly from the artist, because we want to support all these people. We want to support independent cinema. And best of all, we don't sit there and just say, oh, well, this sucks. We give concrete, specific reasons why we feel the way that we feel. Right. And this is even if it's stuff that's made by our friends and everything, or people that we admire, we want to keep our integrity and just say, this is how we feel and this is the reason why. And we've been very consistent.
I couldn't agree with that more. I 100% am behind that. I just, like I said, it's just one of those things where the most disturbing aspect for me of our industry, and I'm not even talking filmmaking, I'm talking about our little section of no to low budget independent filmmaking. I have never, even in the 90s, I never have run into a situation where there are so many people that are desperate to watch their fellow filmmaker fail. And that's just a real shame. That it really bums me out, because I've seen firsthand people that are like, oh, so-and-so is making a movie, screw him. And I've even stopped people from like doing anonymous reviews on rival filmmakers pages, because like, okay, let's say you don't like that person. Okay, I get it. You're not thinking about the 20 to 50 other people that worked on this movie. You're screwing them over too. I don't know. It's just, again, the filmmaking today is very, very different than it was in the 90s. That's all I'm saying.
And look, I'm all for that. Like I'm all for, that's why we created an indie film cafe. And that's why we created the groups and everything. I want that, but there are people who are in the film industry, in the independent budget, low budget, that make it their mission to destroy people,
Absolutely.
and everything.
Absolutely.
And I don't support that 100%. So those are the people I don't support.
Right.
They're the people that block people because they don't follow their views, or like, I'm not going to say a name, but there was a filmmaker who I corrected their poster, right? And all of a sudden I'm blocked from their stuff, and then they're going around telling people, not to work with me and stuff like that.
It's sad. It really is. We've kind of reached a point in, again, this very small corner of the industry where it's like, I think there are a lot of people still in this that got into this because of a true love of cinema. But I also think there are a lot of people in this that have no business doing this, that essentially are there either to attempt to get laid, or because they want to prove something to somebody that doesn't really need to be proven, or even just to get revenge on somebody that wronged them somehow. It's just a real shame.
And I'm the first one to admit, I don't have as much skin in the game as you folks do. Being involved peripherally with, skin, with Indie Film Cafe and Sick Flick Productions and all, that's pretty much my hobby. I have a completely different career that I go to, and it's my bread and butter and 9-to-5 job. So it's easy for me to say, hey, I'm just going to say whatever I feel like saying, because in the end, I don't really care if they like it or not, or whatever. Different position for those of you who are in the business. And at the same time, though, you gotta be true to yourself, and you gotta come at your critique with evidence and with some basis of reality, and not just pay lip service, and not just like you say, tear down things for no reason.
Well, and you bring up a really good point on that, Paul, because the exact the flip side of that is where I've never had a problem with a bad review. Okay, I remember back in what was it? Back when IMDb had a message board.
Oh God,
it was horrifying. The things people would write were like emotionally destructive.
That's why they got rid of it, I believe.
Yeah, I remember there was one on the blood. I think it was either on my personal IMDb page or the bloodletting page that listed me, that somebody had written that I was the worst actor in cinematic history, which basically means not Pauly Shore, not Carrot Top, not Yahoo Serious. It's fucking me. I am the worst actor in cinema history. Now, on the flip side of that, I had plenty of people saying nice things, but even then, it's like, wow. Now, again, if you come at me with, hey, I'm so-and-so, I watched this, I didn't care for this, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I really would. Now, the other side of that, though, is, and I see a lot of this mostly with festivals, where it's like, I don't want you to like my movie because you like me. I don't want, I've never been one to want a good review because we're friends, or because we've spent time together, I was nice to you. I want to be judged on my body of work, and I'll be the first to admit, hey, a lot of my body of work sucks. A lot of it I'm really proud of, but I'm the first person to call out something if I've done that it sucks.
Yep. Well, and I love that, but did you ever find the person who said you were the worst? Like, did they ever come out and say
the nice thing about those days, though, were that back then, not only did they have the message board, but if you posted something, you could contact them. You could contact them on IMDb, and I always did.
And that's the thing I was going to bring up. Back then, I was actually able to talk to a number of the people who were involved in a lot of these movies, who were able to say, okay, I read your review and you pointed this out. Well, the reason why we did this is because X, Y, and Z, or, I worked on this project and, we all knew this was going to happen, but we tried our, but there was a great opportunity to sort of get the inside scoop on things that you'd never would get it. So I personally was very sad to see the comments go. It sucks because you end up bowing to the jerks out there that take over everything, the ones who yell the loudest.
And that's the thing. You in a situation like that, at least how it's set up now, you can't win. I mean, realistically, even back in the day, either it was one of two people typically. Either A, which was a rarity, it was somebody that genuinely just didn't like your movie and was going to voice it um, um, anonymously to basically make themselves feel better, or B, it was somebody who had a personal vendetta about you, you know. And now the difference is you have no recourse. You know, I mean, it's funny to me how the second I start noticing my movie getting bootlegged is about the time that the negative comments start showing up on IMDb. It's like, okay, so let me get this straight. You took money out of my pocket to steal my movie, and now you're going to talk shit about it. How is that any different than me going to somebody's house? Let's say, Paul, I'm going to go to your house and I'm going to steal your car. Then I'm going to bring it back and say, I don't really like the way this handles. It's like, it's absurd. You know?
There's this guy on Amazon. And I noticed it the first time because, you know, my movie Scary Stories Slumber Party was on Amazon. And you would see the comments or whatever. And this one guy would leave, it just said, this sucks, right? And that's it. Like no constructive criticism, just this sucks, right?
Right.
And then I think his subject line was worst movie, whatever. And then I look at his like history of writing the stuff, and that's like literally all he does is he goes to different things. And so, our buddy Dustin Hubbard. So I pointed out him, that this guy was on his, saying it sucks or whatever for one of his movies. And he goes, oh, wow, that was before the movie was even out.
That's what always amazes me is, again, I love it when you start getting bad reviews and the movie hasn't even been seen by anybody. So it's like, okay, either A, somebody that in my inner circle is obviously not as much of an ally as I thought, which has never happened, or B, somebody's full of shit. You know, it's like, and it's almost always somebody's full of shit. So
it's such a shame because I remember I had a detailed conversation with somebody who worked on the set of The Haunting with Robert Wise. And I had posted in my review talking about the possible lesbian subcontext that was going on in the script. And this guy came on and said, well, you're right about this, but you're wrong about this. And we ended up having a back and forth discussion about stuff that he was able to tell me that I never would have known because he was there at the time. He saw script changes that were made during the actual filming itself. You know, everybody who was there was involved and he got to hear it all. And it was a revelation. And unfortunately, I never saved any of that stuff because I didn't know IMDb was going to get rid of all their comments.
Exactly.
Gone.
From what I understand, and again, this could be complete bullshit, but at least what I had heard, the reason IMDb got rid of the message boards, aside from the constant bickering back and forth, was because of Victor Salva. Because Victor Salva used to go on there constantly and defend himself and fight with fans and this, that, and the other thing. And then it had finally, IMDb had gotten so many complaints about it, they finally considered it a liability and just shut the entire thing off. Now, again, that's the story I heard. I don't know if there's any truth to that whatsoever, but at least that's what I heard.
Yeah, that's, so it's interesting to know, like, I guess the IMDb stuff's been kind of transferred to now to like Facebook, people create their groups or their pages and then people can go on there and trash it, or they can say good things or whatever. I got really upset. There was a filmmaker who the person that posted their Indiegogo, and it didn't look great, or whatever. But the person goes, this is dog shit. And I'm like, dude, I know you're a filmmaker. I know you make stuff, whatever. But like, we should be more supportive of one another. I think a lot of what becomes, especially in the indie film community, is like, it's a little bit of jealousy. Like, and
I agree.
And I'm exactly the same way there, because there are times I do get jealous. I'll be the first one to admit it. Like, I'm like, why did that person get this, this thing? What I had a discussion with a friend of mine. He wanted to know what he was doing wrong. And I go, you're not doing anything wrong. that person got that money because they got that money. It's not you're doing something wrong because you're not getting your stuff into the right hands. It's just the luck of the draw these days. And you
There
know
you go.
what? You have to just play your cards and just kind of, deal with what happens.
Oh,
But
exactly. And that's the thing too. It always cracks me up because I've talked to now. I mean, the only time I've dealt with Indiegogo was on Krista, and it was a complete failure. I mean, it just did not work out well for us at all. At the same time, there was another filmmaker who we were running neck and neck, and he did amazingly. He did really, really good. And my own personal opinion was where he had done quite a bit of films. The movie that he was trying to get done, it really wasn't anything that I felt was exciting, But that being said, it's like, hey, good for him. He got it. That's fantastic. What cracks me up is a lot of times now what I'm finding is I've seen productions or I've been involved in productions where they do an Indiegogo and they'll purposely dump like $5,000 of their own money into the Indiegogo to make it look like they're gathering steam. So more people will be like, oh, they've got this, so let's do that. And I'm like explaining to them, you have to pay a fee on that, right? The money you just put in, that's going to end up costing you. He's like, yeah, but it's going to pay off in the long run because people think that we're gathering money. And to me, it's just like, yeah, that's just not worth it to me.
yeah, I've seen these things where all of a sudden in one day somebody will raise like 20 grand in one day, and I'll be like, there's gotta be something going,
Right.
with this stuff, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't have any evidence, and I'm not gonna come right out and say anything. But
Right.
it kind of really, and if that's the case, and somebody told me that's whatever you can do to get people to go in there, go for it, and I want to be like that, but I also want to be like, are we being honest, or
Right.
are we lying? And if we're lying, is it for the good, or is it like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've seen so many of these where they act like, oh, give us your money and this will be the most spectacular film of all time. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not P.T. Barnum. I'm not coming in here trying to hype up. I make $25,000 movies, is what it comes down to. Are you going to have fun? Hopefully. Hopefully it's going to, but we're not making Star Wars here. We're not making multi-million-dollar films, and anybody, I mean, you have to kind of be humble during all of this as well.
Nor should you be thinking you're expecting that you're going to finance an entire film by going through Indiegogo or Kickstarter. Right. I mean, partially, a quarter, maybe.
Right.
10%.
I've always used, what was it? I've always kind of used the Kevin Smith method of filmmaking, or at least for
credit
making
cards.
I'll just max out my credit cards and hope for the best. That's usually the best way that I handle it. So.
Well, here's the thing. So I was told that I was never allowed to be honest about my films when I do interviews or whatever. I have to act like I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and all my movies before then were the greatest, and I'm the, and I'm like, but I don't feel comfortable being a dick,
Right.
Like that's how I feel about it.
That's the Hollywood way of doing things.
Yeah, but that's the thing. What they don't realize is we're not Hollywood. The majority of us are never going to be Hollywood. Again, if I could figure out a way, and realistically, like I said, I've been doing this since '85. I never got into this to be famous. I never got into this to be rich. I assure you that the money that I make from making movies, I'm not going to get that Porsche I always wanted. That ain't going to happen, but I get the opportunity to make films that I'm truly passionate about and hopefully make my money back and then some. If I can figure out a way to make a comfortable living and continue to make movies, that's all I ever wanted. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, that's scary to think because you've been in the business so long. And for you to say this, I was watching a documentary the other day on Orson Welles, and it was called "They'll Love Me When I'm Dead," and he was one of those people. But at the end of his career, like nobody was giving him any money. He had to go self-finance. He had to go find investors, and then after that, like that money got blown. And he had to beg, and it was, people thought it was the most embarrassing thing to see Orson Welles actually asking for money.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking, if that motherfucker was like that, who am I?
Right.
Like
Oh,
I
and
didn't
I get that.
I
Yeah.
didn't make Citizen
On the
Kane.
other hand, you've got folks like Ed Wood, who was born begging and asking money from everybody constantly, no matter what. Even if it didn't have a movie, he was going up and haranguing people and saying, "Oh, wait till you hear about this movie I've got. It's going to have this and this and this and this, and you should invest. And all you have to do is give me $100." And he would do that, and he would end up getting money because that's what he could do.
Oh, yeah. And again, he did not get any recognition until long after his death. I always joke about how, what was it? Again, I made my first film that I directed. Her name was Krista. Already had a strike against it because it was a hybrid of two different films, two different genres that really don't belong together. It's a romantic drama that turns into a necrophile love story. Right there, yes. You're ostracizing a lot of your audience right there. But that being said, it was unique and different. It was something I was really passionate about. I've said from the beginning, I am incredibly happy with this movie. I know that it will find its audience. I might be long in the ground by the time it does, but it will find its audience, So
there you go.
You never know. You never know. All it takes is that one time. I mean, I remember the 90s boom when indie cinema just blew up between Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, Richard Linklater, Kevin Smith, all of those guys, where it was just like studios were constantly looking for the next indie director. Unfortunately, those days are long gone. Those days are, now it's a consistent, and again, I'm not saying there haven't always been liars in the business. I can't tell you how many times I've been contacted by something where it takes me 3 seconds worth of research to find out, yeah, this person's completely lying about everything that they've done.
And that's interesting that you say that because, we've been friends. We said we've been friends for a long time, since 2007 or 8 or something.
I think it was earlier. Yeah,
maybe earlier when MySpace. When I contacted you through MySpace, because I've been a huge fan of Bloodletting, and I really loved you in that. And so that was the we bonded, we became friends. I had you on my radio show back then a bunch of times. I think you've been you're probably one of the reoccurring guests.
Right.
And the funniest thing about it all is I saw the decline of the indie world, because when I started in 2006 interviewing people, all the way to now, it's the whole fucking landscape changed. I remember interviewing a guy who did a movie called Motorhome Massacre. It was amazing that he got this movie for Lionsgate for I think a few $20,000 or something.
Right.
Those days are gone. Lionsgate won't touch your film unless it's got at least $200,000, if not more.
Yeah, guarantee. And even then, they're very skeptical. Most of the problem that I run into the most, and this is part of the reason why I started self-distributing, is the fact that it's a buyer's, actually, that's not true. It's a seller's market right now, in the sense that distributors know that if you turn down their very, very weak offer, there's 60 other directors that are willing to just give them a movie just because they want it out on shelves. But it's like, okay, well, what shelves is it going to be on? Family Video and any rental house are dead. Walmart, Best Buy, Target, their media section is a joke. You can put your own movie on Amazon. So what exactly am I gaining by having a distributor basically take 70% of my profits?
Right. Well, her name was Krista, would probably not be on at Walmart. They are very particular. They're a family friendly, thing. And if they heard what it's about, it's gone.
Although it was only there for about, I want to say, a year, but yeah, it was on their website. We
Oh,
sold, her name was Krista,
Well,
Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Barnes and Noble. Yeah, yeah,
why not? A family that necrophiles together stays together.
exactly. It's like you market it as a romance, you're fine. So
that's funny. Yeah. So tell us, going from being a writer and actor to being a writer, director, actor, I've heard you talk about it before, but, do you look back at that stuff and say, I'm very glad that I directed this myself instead of asking somebody else to direct it?
oh yeah, that's one of those things where, because again, you and I have had many conversations about this, where I never ever had any dreams about being a director. It was not my thing. I mean, the most I was very adamant very early on that I wanted to be an actor. Then the idea of writing was very attractive to me, and I just developed a love for that. But directing was always one of those things where I just didn't want the headache. I just didn't. It's a pain in the ass. Anybody that says that directing isn't a pain in the ass, I'm not buying it. They're either kidding themselves or they are psychotic. One or the other.
Labor of love.
Yeah.
Right. Oh,
And look,
the nice thing about acting and writing versus directing is a perfect example. I just yesterday came off a film where I come in, I'm playing a role in it. I have a 3-day shoot with this company. I learn my lines, I prep for the role, I come in, I do my character, I walk off. If I choose, I never have to worry about this thing again. Never. It does not matter at that point. Don't get me wrong, I'll want to promote it because everything that I do, I try, I hope is successful, but I don't have to lose sleep over it. When you direct something, you're going to live with that for the rest of your life. You're going to worry. There hasn't been a day that's gone by where I haven't done a search on on how each of my films that I've directed are going, because that's something that you live with for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you're definitely a really good promoter. We if people know this by now or whatever, but we worked on Brimstone Incorporated together. Did
Oh yeah.
did a little short called Mama's Boy, which I'll tell a little bit of the story and you can whatever. But we were planning to do it for Scary Story Slumber Party Volume 2, and I was going to direct it. And I came to you and I said, hey, I got half a script. Do you want to write the other half? And you're like, sure. So you wrote the other half, and then you gave it to me, and I was like, oh, so this is different than anything I was expecting. But I was like, hey, we'll go for it. And then it sat on the shelf because there's a lot of shit going on, and just things happen and life goes on or whatever. And then you message me and you're like on Facebook and you're like, hey, what's are you doing anything with Mama's Boy? And I was like, call me. So you called me and we chatted about it. And I think you joke about it. The first thing I asked is, will I get credit, for this? Because I've had problems with co-writers who don't give me any credit at all after they start directing or producing it and everything. And I mean, that was the only, that that was pretty much the only reason I said sure, is because I was like, you know what, this is the best thing in the world. I could just sit on my ass, hand over the thing to you, and then at the end of the day, it's done, it's over, and you are the one with all the headache. You have to put the shit together.
Completely. And that's it cracked me up because, like I said, when we had that discussion, I do recall finding it both shocking and incredibly amusing that you had asked if you were going to get the credit. And then when you explained yourself, I got it. And it's like, that's really sad that in this industry, we have to worry about that, where we have, but it happens. It happens all the time. I'll give you an example. One of the things that bums me out really bad is there was a film that I had written in the early 90s that basically the director of that film he and I were friends at the time. We did not work well together in a production type setting. We worked well as co-stars, but as far as what he wanted to do, it did not go well. And I kind of disassociated myself from the project to the point where it was like, he basically took my script and then took my name off it, and he and his wife rewrote it, and and gave me like a treatment credit. And I'm like, I don't care, whatever. This thing's never going to get made because, like I said, he basically started shooting it, and it's 20 years later and there's still no movie. It's like, okay, yeah, who gives a shit? Well, now I'm hearing that it is finally coming out. And the sad thing about that is I've seen clips of it. It's a complete piece of crap, but I guarantee you it will do better than anything current day. As far as like any, it'll probably do better than both Krista and Brimstone because of the fact they'll market it as this lost 90s shot on video classic, and it'll be like be a big deal. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Yeah, and like I had that problem is like this guy, asked me to write to come up with an idea. I wrote about 10, 20 pages of a script. I handed it to him. I said, are you happy with this? Things didn't work out. I wasn't able to write the rest of it. So he went out and got a co-writer or whatever, somebody else or he rewrote or wrote it. And then I contacted him because my name came off the writer on IMDb and and I wasn't even getting a special thanks at the time. So I said,
wow.
what's going on here? I wrote that, and they're still using my title and everything. Title changed to something else later. And then the guy was like, "Oh, I thought we came up with this together." I'm like, "Dude, no, this was an idea for a short that I had that was supposed to be for another thing. I went to you to give you this idea, and then you're screwing me over." And you know what? If that movie still hasn't come out, and they put me up as a special thanks. They said, that's all they'll give me. I think another company did the same thing. They said, my friends were like, "Dude, you can't do anything for free anymore."
Right. Absolutely.
If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, you got to pay me something," because if you're going to put, and it sucks, like I want to help every independent filmmaker out and give them a fucking good script, because I feel like a lot of times what I'm seeing is a really shitty script because people don't know how to write, and stuff.
We see that all the time.
Right. Absolutely. And if they give it to me, I'd fix it or whatever. Like, let me be the independent script doctor. I'd fucking help you out, but I need to get paid for it. Something.
Right. Exactly.
$500.
Thing, because it's like, I think my body of work speaks for itself in the sense that I'm a whore. If the check if the check clears, count me in. I'll do it, but I want to get paid. That's all. So now, if it's something that I believe in, or it's something that I truly want to help out, I'll do it. I've done plenty of favor bits and not regretted it at all. But at the same token, it's like, I don't know. I get what you're saying, though. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit more about Brimstone Incorporated, which is your newest movie that is out right now.
It's a horror anthology, and the idea is that essentially it's 3 stories, one of which Jonathan and I co-wrote together, and the entire wraparound essentially revolves around a law office that is the gateway to hell. And there are characters from each one of the stories, characters that you don't expect to be the ones that are being interviewed by hell to decide whether or not they're going to heaven or hell. And nice. It initially started out because we had finished Her Name Was Krista, which was my first directorial effort. And my director of photography had come to me and said, look, I think I have some potential investors. The problem is it's older money. So they're not going to sit there and watch your 2-hour dramatic piece. And 2, if they get to the ending of Her Name Was Krista, they're gonna throw us out, because the ending does get fairly fairly grotesque. And nice. I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, what I'd like to do is I'm thinking we should do some short films. And I'll be honest with you, I don't down anybody for doing what they want to do. Short films baffle me in the sense that I don't know how to. I barely know how to make any money off features, but I have no clue how to make money off of short films. Mm-hmm. I basically was like, okay, I'm down with the idea if we can figure out a way to combine these 3 short films together and turn it into an anthology. And that's how this came to be. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I was really happy when you asked me, because like I said, it was a good thing. Like I wanted to see it done, right. And like, if you're a real filmmaker, you're a real true indie filmmaker, you're going to make a million short scripts that probably are never going to see the light of day. So when one of them can see the light of day, you want that to happen just because, like there's so many right now I want to get finished, but I've got other ones that are getting made first.
Exactly. Well, there's only
Pretty
so
much
many
in that
hours in a
boat
day,
too. I've got 3 or 4 that I've started that I'm halfway, or 3/4 of the way through, and I haven't finished. I haven't had the time, or I've run out of ideas, or
Well, and that's the thing, Paul. I'm in the same boat where it's like there's nothing worse than like really being behind a story and you're feverishly going through it. You get about halfway and then you get an idea for another thing. And it's like, well, I'm just going to put this on hold for just a little bit and I'll work on this. And then the next thing you know, you've got 6 unfinished scripts that you're like, oh, what am I going to do?
Well, in my case, I'm my own worst critic because I already go through it. I'm like, I would sit there and say, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And I'm like, most people don't attack a film or look at it the same critically way that I do. I should just leave it alone. But I can't get past that. So.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be a perfectionist. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, with the budgets that we work with, there has to be a sliding scale to an extent. But if you can take the extra time to make something as perfect as it is, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and I'm also a big fan of just taking something that you've been looking at through your own eyes for a while and letting somebody else look at it. And you might get a whole different perspective. You might get ideas that you never thought of.
Oh, yeah.
And I think having a fresh perspective is something that a lot of movies just don't have. It's like I only wish that sometimes the writer or the director had gotten some outside feedback and said, what's another way that we could have done this that I hadn't thought about it? And
right. Oh, I completely agree. We actually had that situation on Brimstone where we had finished the film and something wasn't sitting well with me. I couldn't figure out what it was. So we did a test screening. And what we discovered, that because the stories are First Date, Mama's Boy, and Skunkweed, along with the wraparound. And what we discovered during the test screening was the original order of the shorts were Mama's Boy, First Date, and Skunkweed. And a lot of the cards came back and they were like, the movie's fun. The problem is there's a real comedic element to the wraparound and First Date and Skunkweed, but Mama's Boy's kind of played for straight. So it's like you're going into this very serious, and then by the end it gets kind of goofy and it's kind of throwing off the thing. You might be wise to switch places between First Date and Mama's Boy, and we did it and it made sense. It actually flowed a lot better, and I wouldn't have had that bit of information had I not done a test screening.
Right. Well, then a lot of independent
I was just going to say, I had done a review on Black Sabbath, and it talked about how the American release had rearranged the order of the shorts and from the European release, and how it was very, very, very different. And actually, as it turns out, the American order I thought was much, much better, but it does make a huge difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The way you do that with anthology pieces.
I mean, it's tough. When I did like Scary Story Slumber Party, it was tough deciding which ones go where. Because, because they were all just a bunch of random shorts put together. They weren't like, there was no theme, and people were like, I saw these like reviews from like real reviewers or whatever from websites that were like saying that the problem with it was there was no connecting theme. I'm like, dude, there doesn't have to be a connecting theme in these kind of anthologies. It's just fun. Like when people take it way too seriously, that's when it's a problem. But I'll say
is the theme.
Yeah, I mean, the theme is people at a slumber party telling scary stories. I mean, it's not difficult to kind of figure out. But when I was doing it, I was trying to figure out where does this go, and we thought, like doing it, I had to actually switch something and make it before the slumber party, like they're watching a scary movie on the television, and that was bashed, and you know what I mean, like that was a specific thing. Me personally, I love the way that Brimstone was. I think the funniest thing was from that. I don't know if it was from that specific test screening or when you decided to kind of cut some stuff too, like, because there are a couple scenes that get cut, but they're on the deleted scenes on the thing. And I remember This is gonna be so funny, but I remember having a conversation with you. I was in LA, and I get a call from you. You're like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm walking, like I want to get some exercise. Walking outside, and you're like, "Hey, so we're gonna have to cut some of Mama's Boy out." And I was like, "Oh shit, you're cutting out my scenes." Like, and it was tough. It was tough because as a producer, I know what you're saying,
Right.
right? Like what you're saying makes total sense, and I'm like, I'm all for it.
But
I
at
was
the
like,
same token, there's a part of, I mean, and I've been there. Trust me. There's a part of you in the back of your mind that's like, no, don't touch that. That's mine.
right, exactly. It's like, oh my god, that was my part that you're cutting out, not your part. Like, cut out some of your part, not my part.
Right.
Right? But why you cut out your part? Because you wouldn't have cut it out had there hadn't been like some sound issues and stuff.
Right.
So
Exactly.
sense why you cut it out. It wasn't time. Well, it was a little bit of time, I think, but it was.
It was, but I'll be honest with you. I tend not to. Ever since Krista, I tend not to worry about that anymore because, like I said, I mean, that was another situation where we had made this movie that ran a lot longer than I expected it to. It was written as a 90-minute film, but somehow it expanded out to a 2-hour film. And again, I did test screenings where it's like, okay, I'm too close to this thing. I need to figure out a way to trim at least 20 minutes out of this. And we did 2 separate test screenings at a local, at the film department of a local college. And it was a group of 25 each. And when we got the cards back, in almost every case, it's like, yeah, the movie's long, but we didn't see anything that felt like filler or anything that we felt trimmed. In fact, there were only 3 of the cards that came back that made suggestions of trimming, and all of them seemed like really foolish moves. So it's like, you know what, fuck it. We're gonna release a 2-hour movie, and whoever's not gonna see it isn't gonna see it.
Right. Exactly. So I believe you have a sale right now going on, right? If I'm correct.
Yes. Essentially, both Her Name Was Krista and Brimstone Incorporated are available through makeflix.com, diabolicdvd.com, and you can also get them through if you contact me through Facebook, through Messenger. If you get it at MakeFlix, if you get both Krista and Brimstone, you save $5 and get free shipping. They're $20 a piece for the Blu-ray or $15 a piece for the DVD. If you get them direct through me, you have the option to have them signed for free. You get free shipping. And again, there you can get one of the other or both for them. And I prefer both. I'm always a fan of both.
I'm ready to order both from you if that's okay.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'd be honored. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if you'll sign them for me, that'd be great.
Oh, 100% guaranteed. And then what was it? Next time you get together with Jonathan, you'll have him sign it as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Good.
So there you go. So and yeah, I gotta buy Her Name Was Krista. I gotta get it from you. So you're expecting some money coming up.
I love money. I'm a big fan. It makes me be able to do more of these.
Well, and that's the thing, like, if I have the money, like if I'm able to do that, I like to spend it on, and Paul's the same way. We like to give it back to the creator because, like, I mean, like, it's great that you're going through MakeFlix, which is that JR's company too? So if I'm correct.
JR's company, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had it when it first came out for the first 30 days. Now it's available elsewhere. And then as of the first of this month, Chris has been on Amazon Video and Google Play the last year. Brimstone just hit Amazon Vimeo and Google Play as of the first. Those are available. If you rather rent than not, you have that option as well.
Ooh, there's a little bit of like a mess up there, but can you guys hear me?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Okay.
back to being better, but it was, I think I could hear what you're saying. It was just some of the time it was a little messed up in the things. I don't know
Got it.
So I do have one more polymorph question, if you'll indulge me.
Yeah.
And maybe you know the answer to this, maybe you don't. Do you know whatever became of Ariana Albright?
Ariana and I had stayed in contact up until, I believe, 2017, 2018. And she was actually supposed to play Krista in Her Name Was Krista. And she initially was very comfortable with it and then decided against it. And I had to recast. And it's a shame because the original idea of Krista was to kind of serve as a reason for the two, basically a 20-year reunion thing where we get back together as co-stars. Now that being said, I have to say that the change actually was the best because I think Cheyenne Day is phenomenal stuff. But I don't know. Like I said, I haven't spoken to Ari since then. It's about 2 years, maybe 3 years now. And occasionally check to see if she's doing anything as far as projects go. But sadly, her IMDb page has not changed since 2012. So I don't know if she's opted out of the business or not.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could probably try to get her on the show at some point. I'm still
That'd be great.
friends with her on Facebook. So
absolutely. I know she's not very active on she's not active on social media, but you can send her a message, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to say thank you, James. Absolutely for everything. Stick around and chat with us afterwards. And everybody else, thank you guys so much for checking this out. Thank you, Paul, for coming on because I've interviewed James a good amount of time, so it's nice to have somebody with some fresh questions. And
well, this was a great honor for me. I've always liked James L. Edwards, and this was a good chance to actually ask him some questions and get to talk to him. That's pretty awesome.
And we are going to be working with him sometime.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
all right, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and hope everybody who is checking this out. Let us know what you guys think, and hit us up, and we'll be back next month with a whole new person. So who knows who that'll be? We'll find out then. And everybody, have a good one. Bye.
Bye.